Good morning. It's another Tuesday morning, NOMBERG Law Live, coming to you in downtown Birmingham, and with my very good friend, attorney Ed Hardin. Good morning, Ed.
Good morning, Bernard.
I'm so pleased that you would give me a few minutes of your time this morning. We got so much to talk about, and I appreciate any of y'all who tune in to us. If you've got any questions that you want to ask Ed or ask me for the next 20-30 minutes, just throw them in the comment section, and we will be glad to field those questions. I don't know if he wants to talk much about Tua and Jalen right now, but we're going to talk about a whole bunch of other good things. Ed, I'm so pleased that you're here this morning. For those of you who don't know Ed, and there may be a few of you out there, Ed is a longtime Birmingham attorney, but he's so much more than that. Ed is a philanthropist. He is a restaurateur, and we'll just get into some of those things over the next little bit. And if you would, just tell folks a little bit about yourself and what you're about these days.
Well, I was born in Wetumpka, Alabama, and my father was a Methodist minister, and he had 5 little churches around Titus and then some small places. But when I was 1 year old, we moved to Pensacola, Florida, and I lived there until I was 13. Then we moved to Montgomery, and I went to Capitol Heights Junior High and Robert E. Lee. It was in the first class at Robert E. Lee High School, and finished there in 1958. Went to Birmingham Southern College for 4 years, and then worked in Birmingham as a lawyer after going to law school. Graduated in 65, and practiced here in Birmingham until 1998, when I was asked to be general counsel and executive vice president of Caremark, which was originally called Med Partners. And in 2002, the company headquarters were moved to Nashville, and I was there for 5 years or so till we merged with CBS. And then I came back to Birmingham and was invited to be of counsel with the law firm of Burr Foreman, which has worked out very, very well. And I hope, for me, and I hope for the law firm too.
How long have you now been with Burr Foreman?
10 years now.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Wow, I must be getting old.
Yeah.
10 years is just flying by, but there's so many stories, there's so many great trials. I know you've been part of more than 200 trials over your legal career at this point. There's got to be a few trials here or there that kind of stick out, and I'd love to dive into a couple of those if you don't mind sharing some that may come to mind.
Well, the one that I will always remember and always feel like that we accomplished so much for federally employed females. I tried with your father and Joel Nomberg, and we tried before Judge Warner was assigned the case, and he brought in as special magistrate, Judge Martin. And we tried the case non-jury for about 2 weeks, and we started early in the morning and went late at night. Our clients were 27 female employees at Fort Rucker, Alabama, and at that point in time, the average classification for female workers was GS3 or GS4, in that range. And at the conclusion of the trial, we, after submitting a brief of over 800 pages, summarizing the testimony, and Judge Martin ruled in favor of 26 of the 27 of the female employees, and ordered each of them promoted with back pay, and ordered the federal government to cease and desist and implement, from doing what they had been doing with regard to discrimination against the female employees.
That really was a landmark case for you guys and for the U.S. Army.
And that was back in the late 70s.
Mm-hmm.
And I had a similar case for the women in Goodyear in Gadsden. And I'm very, very proud of the results that we achieved in both of them.
I know you're proud of that.
Yeah, the female employees at Fort Rucker that filed this case or asked us to represent them received a national award in San Antonio, and Joel and I were invited by the ladies to go with them. And that was quite special. It was a national award for their courage and taking on the U.S. Army.
Well, I know that's one of the reasons why you become a lawyer. It's to help people like that and to get those type of results. And I know you're not one for the spotlight to be called on you, but Dad, and you really accomplished some major changes in the law. I want to say good morning to Martin, Kimberly. We got so many people tuned in this morning. Chris, Morris, thank you guys, Dad, for tuning in. If you've got any questions or comments you want to ask Ed or me, just throw them into the comment section. We'll be glad to get to them. Ed, I want to take you to Tuscaloosa sometime in the late 60s or early 70s. I know you had a medical malpractice case there, you and Delane Mountain, and there's a twist in here that involves Coach Bear Bryant. Tell me what you remember about that trial.
Well, it's I think maybe the first malpractice case I'd ever tried, and I was a great friend in Utah, Alabama, named George Clark, and he had a friend who had a badly broken leg on a motorcycle, and brought up to Tuscaloosa to have his leg fixed. Was put in a cast, and the treating physician did not bring him back in time, and that ended up with a frozen knee. And so the knee had to be to break the adhesions in the knee. He was put under anesthesia, and the doctor exerted enough pressure on the leg that broke his femur.
Oh my!
Which in of itself is not that unusual, but he changed the records, and so it was a highly explosive kind of case. And with Delane and I were getting ready to make the closing argument, and Delane opened, and then the defense lawyer made this argument. Then I was closing, and the doctor's wife was sitting on the front row, and I knew they were friends of Coach Bryant, but it never occurred to me that he might show up. And all of a sudden, there's a lot of clamoring in the back of the room, and I look up, and here comes Coach Bryant with his driver, Billy, and they sit down by the defendant's wife, puts his big old arm around her, and I am stunned. I mean, I didn't know courtroom. I mean, what do you say?
Jury's in the box.
Jury's in the box, and I'm standing in front of them, and I can't, and my mouth, I can't even think. And so Delane, what Delane told me later, what I said, because I didn't even remember. I said something to the effect that, the judge said, only listen to the evidence that comes from the witness stand.
Right.
And the defense has put on some evidence in this case that I don't know how to respond to. I said, Coach Bryant walked in. We all know him and love him and respect him. And he's put his arm around the defendant's wife. Now, what do I say to that? And the only thing I could think of, I said, we love him and respect him, but I can tell you one thing, that if Coach Bryant had made a mistake, he'd have been man enough to confess it. And sat down. And the jury was out 2 days. I mean, they delivered over 2 days, and finally we got a verdict. I'll never forget it.
That's quick thinking on your feet right there.
That wasn't quick thinking. I don't even know where that came from.
Wherever it came from, it was very, very helpful. But thank you for sharing that story. I know that's a great memory for you and for Delane.
Delane and I enjoyed that story for many, many years.
And of course, we're referring to the Mountain, who is practicing with his son Clint over in Tuscaloosa. Clint was a recent guest of mine a couple of weeks ago, and I know that they're enjoying practicing law together.
Great family, my wife Barbara.
Absolutely. I want to thank Lynn. We got Lynn Crossan. Let's see, Trisha's in there.
Wow.
Tom Sorrells, Dwayne. Thank you guys for tuning in for a few minutes. We got a question from my buddy Morris Lilienthal, attorney up in Huntsville. He asks, what advice would you have for a young trial lawyer these days?
Well, I think the biggest challenge for a young trial lawyer these days is getting an opportunity to try a case, because so few cases are being tried now, and the opportunities to try a case are very, very limited. And I tell young lawyers when they're coming out of school, if you really want to be a trial lawyer, try to get on with the district attorney or the U.S. Attorney's Office or some federal agency where you can actually try cases. It doesn't matter, what kind of cases they are, the criminal or civil or whatever, but to get the experience of talking and on your feet and being able to, select a jury and understanding the process is so very, very important. And that's the primary advice I give to young lawyers. Absent that, you can do it pro bono. I mean, go up to, with your bar association and just take some pro bono cases. Particularly tell them you want cases that are right for jury trials and try them. And that's the only way you can learn.
Very, very sound.
It's kind of like learning to swim. throw you in the water and
That's
swim.
Right. Well, speaking of swimming, guess who just joined us? Mike Atchison is on there. Hey, Mike.
Hey.
Good to see you, sir. I know you know this man very well.
My great friend.
Ed, talk to us a little bit about, I know that you mentor lawyers in your firm. I know that you counsel with them quite a bit. What, with the practice of law so different now with technology, with phones and being so mobile, when you and Dad and Mike and Delane were all coming up, you were heavy into the books. Now it's all computer based, but that still doesn't change the general tenements of practicing of law. What is it that you tell young lawyers that they need to be successful? What are some of the key components that you would concentrate on, regardless of your practice?
Well, I don't have all the answers, but I'll tell you a few things that I think are tried and true tenets. One is pick up the phone and talk to the other lawyer, or go to the other lawyer's office and sit down and talk face to face rather than just email back and forth. Emailing can create conflict when there really is none, and there's no reason for it. It's the way you say something. It's short. It can just irritate somebody, and I've watched young lawyers try to negotiate settlements on email, and I just think that is entirely inappropriate. So that's my number one piece of advice. Go sit down and talk face to face and work it out. And the second thing is, I'm an old school guy about the way you dress. When you meet a client, I think you need to have a coat and towel, and I think your client is due that respect. And he is or she is asking you to handle something very, very important for them, and you should treat it that way and give them the courtesy of appropriate attire. Those are kind of the two of the things.
Two standards.
Yeah, but young lawyers today are very, very smart. They can find information and the answers to legal issues so much quicker than we ever could, because we had to go to the books and pull them all out. And it take hours and hours and hours. So they have, the young lawyers today have a lot of advantages, over. The third thing is the practice of law is really kind of, I want to say, almost mean. I mean, it's
Less civil.
less civil, and civility is such an important part of being a good lawyer. You can say no and say it respectfully, without saying, "Oh, why don't you just go jump off a cliff?" Your case stinks. And, you can say, we have a, sort of disagreement in the value of the case, and the offer is unacceptable. I appreciate, the offer, but, we just can't get together. And you can say that very civilly. Treating other lawyers with civility and respect, as well as clients and jurors and judges. And to me, that's a critical part of being a successful lawyer.
And that probably goes back or fits into the first thing that you said about picking up the phone as opposed to always trying to communicate by way of email, because your tone can be misinterpreted.
Absolutely.
Well, those are three excellent.
You can send an email and be smiling.
Yeah.
And it's the worst email you've ever
Right.
made. It has a terrible effect.
Yeah. Well, I know, Ed, those three rules right there have served you very well over the years of your practice. And it sounds like that what was true in the 60s, 70s, 80s, 90s, and now in the teens is still true.
Well, there's one other thing, one other point I'd like to make, and that's respect for everybody you deal with. That's courthouse personnel, that's anybody you come in contact with in the clerk's office. Treat them with respect. Treat everybody you meet in every day with respect. The waitresses, the people that help you do anything. Because respect lasts forever. That person will always remember that you treated them nicely and with respect. And you always, if somebody fails to treat you with respect, you never forget it.
You'll remember it, that's for sure.
So, relationships, and friendships, and leaving a good taste in people's mouths is very critical in any profession, but particularly being a lawyer.
Well, thank you for sharing those thoughts right there. Let's pivot a little bit, because you're not just about being a lawyer. I know that's been your profession all these years, but you have so many more interests. We didn't even talk about deep sea fishing, but before we get to that, you've been a restaurateur for many years here in Birmingham and well known. I know that you had the Bombay Cafe that was so successful for so many years, but that's not where you are now. Let's talk about, where are we sitting today? Let's talk about that restaurant.
Well, actually, I'm not a restaurateur. I'm more at the real estate where the restaurant takes place. But I'm very, very fortunate to be associated with Chef Jimmy Boyce. And now he has built a great restaurant at Galleon Garden. And I'm just so proud of him. August 10th. Wine Enthusiast magazine named the restaurant one of the top 100 restaurants in the United States for its wine and food.
Let me stop you for just a second about that, because we're in such a very crowded field in Birmingham, so well known, many other restaurants in town. That's a huge honor. That really speaks very well for the restaurant and for everybody involved, and congratulations for that recognition.
It's a great team. I mean, Jimmy Boyce and his wife Susan, who's one of the best sommeliers I've ever come across. She's amazing in her selection of the wines, and particularly the wines that are really good wines, but are at the right value. Where you don't feel like you're being paying the arm and the leg. but they are as good a wine as, you know, $400 or $500 bottle, but they're in the $40-$50 range.
Great value.
And that's what I enjoy so much about Susan's selection. But you know, thanks to her and Chef Boyce and Chef Josh, who has just done an amazing job, and Jesse, Jewel, and of course Stan Reynolds, who we're so fortunate to have, who's spent 17 years as the dining room manager at Commander's Palace.
Wow.
Has been with us 7 years, and just an amazing man.
Some real pros who work here. And when we finish, we'll put all the contact information for the restaurant in the comments section. So anybody who wants to make reservations or learn more about the restaurant, you certainly will be handy to get it there. I want to say hello to Alex Ely and Joe Ott and Mom and Kimberly Cannon. So many people have popped in and out. We want to thank you guys for spending a few minutes with us.
Did I see Lynn Crossan?
You did see Lynn Crossan came through there a few minutes ago. I don't know if she's still on, but good to see you, Lynn. Thank you.
I haven't seen her in a long time.
Yeah. Well, people know you. Word tends to get out that you're on this few minutes. So we've got a couple of more minutes. We want to thank you guys for spending some time. I'm with Ed Hardin, who longtime attorney here in Birmingham. Being an attorney is Ed's profession, but he's so much more things. Ed, any thoughts? Anything you want to share?
Yeah, you know, I wish we had a little more time because I'd like to talk about a case that Mike Atchison handled.
Go for it. We've got all the time you have.
For Caremark when I was general counsel, and so we worked together on it. But it was an amazing result, and Tony Harlow and Rick Tosie also worked with Mike, and just to give the short version of it, we had to get this litigation concluded by a certain time because we had a note due, and it was critical to the success of the company to be able to get this litigation concluded so we could access almost $300 million to pay the note. The company would have been seriously jeopardized. And Mike and the team just did an amazing job with that. And from the time it was filed to the time it went to the Alabama Supreme Court, I think it was done in almost like 11 months, which was
I'm sure a record time.
Amazing. But Mike's one of the great lawyers. I always say that he's always set the standard for ethics in the state of Alabama, and I believe that.
And I know he's been a mentor for many lawyers over the years as well.
You know, I've known each other since we were 18 in Birmingham, Missouri.
And you still hang out together.
We do.
Guys, we're getting close to the end of our interview. I want to thank so many people who've popped in. As you know, NOMBERG Law Live is a weekly show. I interview lawyers. I interview interesting business people. Ed happens to be a cross-section of all of those things. I see that Delane has just popped in. Good morning, Mr. Mountain. Good to see you, and thank you for joining us.
Hello, Delane.
If you guys have any questions for Ed, just throw the questions or comments in the comment section. We'll make sure, whether you're watching this live or later on, we'll make sure we get the questions to Ed. Ed, in closing, are there any, and I really don't have much of an agenda or any more specific topics to go over because we could talk for hours. We know that. I wanted to kind of throw it to you to see if there were any things that you wanted to stress or to communicate or to add to our conversation.
No, except to, first of all, thank all my friends. I mean, you cannot go through life without friends and the support and great relationships. And, you know, the old saying, no man's an island. Well, that is absolutely true. And anytime you think you can achieve whatever it is you're trying to achieve without the support and help of your friends and your family, you're just, and your cohorts, your business associates, it's just wrong thinking. And, just maintain those relationships, nourish relationships, and keep your friends always around you.
Wise words from personally speaking, and I'm glad that you brought that up. That's I could not have said what you just said better, and that's what I wanted to close with. Ed, I've known you since before I was born. You knew Dad in law school, and you've been there for every monumental, every notoriety things throughout my life. And you've always been a dear friend to me and a mentor and a guide, and I thank you for that.
Well, and I thank you, Bernard. You've been a great asset in my life. And when I was offered the position at Caremark, I entrusted Bernard, with my practice. And the reason I did it is because I trust him completely.
Well, thank you, Ed. And we'll conclude our interview at this point. Guys, thank you for all of those who popped in while we were live, for those who watch us later on. This is NOMBERG Law Live. I'm with attorney Ed Hardin here in Birmingham. We come to you every Tuesday at 10 o'clock Central, 8 a.m. Pacific. And we hope you guys have a great rest of your week, and we'll catch you again in a few days. Take care.